I'm James Walker, and this is Real Talk, Real People. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. I'm really excited about the two guys that we have as my guests this week. You're talking about two guys with not only some great ideas, but the will to make those ideas a reality. About a little more than 10 years ago, they were teaching a class at a local university. They decided to ask their students, what if they could, what would their perfect world look like? And they were shocked by some of the answers that they received back. Many of these young people were making decisions based on what they learned in the media or what they found online or through Twitter or Instagram from what we now are calling influencers. And of course, they were making bad decisions based on that. That's when this company started. It is now part of a nationwide network, and they call it Welcome to Reality. Let's get them on the show and hear what they have to say.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marcus Stallworth, co-owner of Welcome to Reality, LLC, and co-owner of Reality Based Services, Incorporated.
And Anthony?
Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Gay. I'm also a co-owner of Welcome to Reality, LLC, and also one of the co-founders of Reality Based Services.
Okay, and you guys are located in Waterbury, am I correct? Are you based in Waterbury?
Yes.
Okay, and what is Welcome to Reality? I love the name, Welcome to Reality, because I think so many of us seem like we're in a comic book here lately and there's no reality. So exactly what is Welcome to Reality?
Look, you got it, Marcus.
Great. Yeah, so Welcome to Reality is a company that we developed, and ironically, it was developed unintentionally. So myself and Anthony, we were both teaching as in a professor role at a local university, and we were teaching a class simultaneously on civility. And we decided towards the end of the semester to kind of merge the classes together and create like a group assignment. And we asked them to think about if they had the opportunity to create their own society, what would it look like? And to make a very elaborate story condensed and short, what we really discovered was a lot of young people are making decisions, getting influenced and guided in life by what they see on TV, music, and radio.
That's
much
correct.
Less than what mom, dad, or aunt or uncle is introducing them to.
Yeah, they're called the influencers that are just, passing on. And quite frankly, some of the stuff that they're passing on is just, I don't get it. It's changing your whole face, changing your whole body, stuff that doesn't make sense to me, and stuff that's not going to help you in the long run. But you do have some I went to your website. First of all, I love your website. It's very inviting. It's very eye-catching. And you have some things on there that I really, really want to talk about, like your Dear Black Male series, I think is what you call it. What do you call the Dear Black Male series? What is that?
Yes, so the Dear Black Male series is a wonderful learning opportunity that, once again, being connected to the field gave us opportunities to make contributions. I would love to ask Anthony to kind of pull in and speak a little more about that, but it's also part of our training institute. So initially, we started just doing work solely on social media and media literacy. And as you saw on the website, it has expanded in great ways.
Yes, so why don't you talk about that, Anthony?
Sure. So as Marcus stated, we've expanded over the last 10 to 12 years from that initial inception of the company. And we went from social media, and we're both have a background in the field of social work, right? So we're in the human services sort of profession. And along the way, various entities reached out to us based on some of our other work and asked us to create other learning opportunities for their organizations or universities. So what we ended up doing is we did some work around racial justice, fatherhood, obviously social media. And there was this theme that was happening even a little bit prior to George Floyd. There was a shift where people started talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Right.
So what we decided to do was create a training around issues that Black men in America face. And we came up with Dear Black Male, and it's broken down into 5 different sections. And I'll say this really briefly. When we initially started the Dear Black Male concept, it was going to be a 2-hour training. We did a focus group. We brought in about 30 to 40 people, and by a person, everyone said, this 2 hours is not enough. This topic is too broad. You need to expand it. So we broke it down into 5 separate categories. So the categories are as follows. 1, we talk about systemic racism and oppression. From 1619, when the first 20 enslaved people were brought to the colonies in Virginia. The second portion of it, we talk about mass incarceration. I'm sorry, the media's portrayal of the Black male. And we sort of couple that with mass incarceration, because we know that the portrayal of the Black man in media is not always favorable. And sometimes we're depicted in ways that make us seem threatening. And us being viewed as a threat could lead to some of the incarcerations and killings of men of color that we see. So we focus on that. And the after effects of that for Black men can generate issues around mental health. So the 4th component is strictly about mental health. And then we tie it all in together in our last session and focus on how the systemic racism that we've previously dealt with in the past and present day, how the media portrayal of Black men, how the mass incarceration, and how the mental health that Black men face and are facing this day impacts the family. So the last portion is just Dear Black Male, the family. And when we say family, we use family interchangeable with the word community. So it's broken down into those 5 sections of our overall presentation. And Marcus could speak about this, but we've done this locally, throughout the state and nationally. So we've been doing it for nonprofits, churches, universities, youth programs. We've been doing it nonstop for almost a year and a half now. And it's been widely revered in many ways.
You know, I'm listening to you, and there is nothing that you have said that I have not written about, particularly the media and its portrayal of Black men, right down to the myth that all Black men are absent fathers. You know, I don't think people understand exactly the weight that is on our shoulders, because unlike white men, we pay a price for everything that other Black men do. If Black men are out there shooting, then we are looked at as the shooters. So we pay a really horrible price. I love the Black Man series and what you just talked about, because I think it is so important. And I also like what you talked about when you talked about civility, which I think is really, really missing a lot in our community, as well as pride. And we just seem to have lost that kind of pride that, I don't know, there's just something missing there. So I really think the Dear Black Male series is great. And your approach to racism, and how do you approach that? Because that is something that every Black person or minority has to deal with. But we have to deal with it and move on. We can't just be mired down in it and allow it to just destroy our lives and keep us from moving forward. So what is your message, Marcus, to Black men or Black people who seem to be just mired in that and can't move forward?
Yeah, James, that's a great question. And I'm glad that you made the connection or highlighted the fact that it's not every and it's not all. And a lot of times that's the entry point. Listen, there are some things that are happening that are way beyond our control. You know, legislative movement stalls or fizzles out, and individual, community stuff can kind of fizzle in and out. But we all have an individual opportunity to make choices and decisions. And, over time and over experiences, individuals are able to see that. We also think there's a value and importance of having a safe place to talk about it and discuss it with other men of color. And I think that was a place that really brought one of the reasons that Chop It Up got developed, where we had an opportunity to create a safe space for men of color to talk about all the things we've already discussed that many of us experience or grapple with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, it's really strange because I think we're fragmented. I mean, because I'm listening to you guys and you are talking the same stuff that I talk about, and yet we don't know each other. We are in a small state. We are a minority in a small state. You guys are doing great things. You have, and yet I'm doing good things. I've been out there. My name is in print and so forth, and yet we don't know each other, and that is a problem to me. We are all on the same page here, but we're working kind of individually instead of collectively. And I'm wondering, does that stump your work? Do you find those are roadblocks that we're not all on the same, or we're on the same page but not working collectively?
It does, and it's funny that you say that. Ironically, Marcus and I, a couple of days ago, we were having this very same conversation, just in a little different context. Because one of the things that we need to do as people of color is be supportive of each other.
Exactly.
Right? So we need to be supportive, and we need to network in the way that we're networking now, because there are great things happening in silos.
Right.
And there's a struggle for Black businesses to stay afloat. So Marcus and I was having this discussion about really putting together somewhat of a blue book for Black businesses in Connecticut, and sharing that information as one of the projects of Chop It Up. How do we come together and figure out who some of these Black businesses and organizations are, and kind of let people know so we can be supportive of each other? And as you stated, as it relates to the work that we're doing, we're not only looking to do this work. So a part of Chop It Up, what we've done is we've collected a group of positive, strong Black men who want to see communities get better. But we didn't just stop in the borders of Connecticut. We reached out to Black men across the country who actually participate, so we can create networks. We've had brothers from Connecticut go down and connect with brothers in Georgia. Our brothers from Connecticut go down and connect with brothers in Jersey and say, hey, this is where you stay. This is where you need to avoid. This is where the Black businesses are. This is where you can go to support. So we're trying to build that network, and that's a part of what Chop It Up is. It didn't start out that way, as Marcus stated. It started out as us coming together, having an opportunity to share some of our frustrations and trying to come up with some ideas on how to deal with it. Not necessarily solve it, but deal with it.
But deal with it.
And dealing with it actually led to creating this coalition across state lines, where we're now starting to take some action on what we can actually do about it, even up to legislative proposals and bills.
Now, I just want to stop for a minute because we kind of went from Welcome to Reality to Chop It Up. So give people an idea of what Chop It Up is so that they know what you're talking about. And Marcus, why don't you go?
Yeah, sure. So Chop It Up is a group of individuals. Again, when we're in this work and in this world, we could do things, right? We could talk about it, we can complain about it, or we can make an effort to do something about it. And that's what we decided to do. So initially, we just put together a cadre of men of color where we can gather and kind of talk and share about frustrations. And not only that, but also provide ideas, resources, and supports. So we meet every week. On Wednesday evenings, starts at 7:00, and we already thought about some of the barriers. So we did it after traditional work hours. There's no fee attached. We don't have to worry about travel and gas and transportation. It's all set up via technology, through a social platform, and we also, as through reality-based services, there's no fee attached, and through our company we absorb that. So it's a great opportunity. And James, if I could highlight this really quickly, we offer on a weekly basis information on historical tips to stay connected to culture, financial tips for individuals to think about and consider, mental health. We talk about emotional pieces, co-parenting. There's a variety of subject matters that we bring up, and we really use it as a coalition, and quite frankly, often also as a community. We have a code of ethics that we all commit and subscribe to. We refer to each other and identify each other as brothers. And we do our best to kind of lead on a positive note and conclude on a positive note, and maintain communication throughout the week, throughout using technology in a purposeful way.
So James, if I could add to that really quick, because Marcus was being generous in terms of how we communicate with each other. It's not that so it's difficult for me to do this interview or be on this podcast and say Marcus, because during Chop It Up, I would address him as Brother Marcus.
Mhm.
We all identify each other as brother. And when Marcus says when we sort of leave each other, before we leave Chop It Up, before we leave that platform, we let each and every brother on there know that we love them. Because that's something that we don't hear oftentimes
Often. That's
from
correct.
people that look like us, especially male to male. And just if I could go back to the beginning and the inception, through Dear Black Male, doing this training, one of the things that was consistently highlighted was that men of color have issues and frustrations with systems. And because they have issues and frustrations with systems, many of them who need help around mental health won't
Seek it out.
they won't seek it. So we said, okay, we know it's a problem. What can we do? Let's not set up a men's group and make it about therapy. Let's make a men's group where we could come together and just talk about what we're feeling. But now, if you ask any of the members and Chop It Up, they all tell you it's therapy, right? We say we're not a support group, but they all say we support each other, as Marcus stated. There's daily communication, contact, tips, sharing of resources. We have Black pilots, we have attorneys, we have LCSWs, we've had PhDs, we have plumbers, electricians, brothers who were recently just incarcerated and got released and was looking for a place to go. We've had people make referrals to us through training saying, hey, I'm a clinician. There's this young Black man I'm working with. He needs to be connected to a group of positive men. And we've had this happen from places in Jersey. We literally have a gentleman right now who's in our group from New Jersey, who someone participated in one of our presentations at Rutgers, was a clinician and says, you need to be a part of this group. He came on and he has been on every single week. And we started this in the first week of September 2020. And we have done it every week, consistently, nonstop, no breaks, and the brothers show up every single week.
One of the things that I have written about and I talk about constantly is the fact that for many young or just minority men, all they really need is someone to talk to and someone to listen to them. And I understand that, this is not a racial thing, but Black men understand Black men in ways that white men can't understand. We share. I don't care if we grow up in, in the ghetto, or if we grew up in, some high upper class, whatever. We share certain DNA that just, makes us, I don't know, accessible and unaccessible to one another. And I think one of the things that we have to do as successful Black men is build trust. So many Black men don't trust another Black man. And I think we all know that as soon as somebody comes up to, hey, brother, the first reaction from you is, oh God, what do you want? That's kind of like the first reaction, because that's the way it has been for a lot of people. That brother that we talk about, in a lot of cases, those brothers are the ones that are doing us serious harm. It is not the white guy, it is the brothers who are doing us serious harm. And we somehow have to make that connection and get them back into the fold. It is a difficult challenge. You got something else going on there that I really like. And it's called, what is your basic model? What is that? It's called the basic model. So
Yeah,
Marcus,
so
go ahead. Tell us about that.
So the basic model really just got developed from some of our work that we were doing around media literacy. And yes, although we've done training and created courses at the university level, we actually got 2 bills passed in the state of Connecticut. And what we really learned is, one is Public Act 17-67, and it gives some great guidance on what that looks like. Essentially, all kids in public school will be taught and educated on media literacy, digital citizenship, and internet safety. But the basic model was a response to a frequently asked question that Anthony, myself, and Karan are often asked from parents. Well, what are some ideas and strategies that we could do for our kids? So we came up with something that was clear and concise, easy to remember, and we shared the basic model. So the first B is be present. Be present in your kid's life and know what's really going on. The A is for ask questions, purposeful questions, not just yes or no, open-ended questions, engaging questions. The S is for supervise. Know what your kids are involved in, and have that presence and that level of hierarchy for safety in your household. The I is for investigate and the C is for contract. So contract is how we could be proactive instead of reactive. And even we put some thought into this, James, on our website in our Parents Corner. You can find all of those resources, those contracts you can download. There's no cost attached to it. And, there's a lot of arguments that people are saying, hey, with all these things happening in the world today, where there are missed opportunities, where there are other signs and indicators or precipitating factors, I wonder if individuals were connected to some of the components of the basic model, being present and asking questions, supervising and contracted, maybe some of these outcomes might have looked a little different.
And there's one more thing I want to ask you guys about. Mark, you guys had some kind of role, or maybe you guys, I know Marcus, you had some kind of role that you played after Newtown or during the Newtown shootings. Can you talk a little bit about that and what your role was there? I was a city editor at the Hour newspapers the day that happened, and I sat in the newsroom with all this information coming at me. And quite frankly, I just sat there like everybody else in tears that these kids had been murdered like they were. What role did you play there, and how did you help that situation?
Yeah, certainly, James. So just notice already my energy is already shifting a little bit as we're starting to think about those minutes and moments in time. But the Connecticut has a emergency mental health response team that gets deployed when there's natural disasters, acts of terrorism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I was sent out there out into the field to respond to that. And I actually was the leader on the ground for some of those efforts that took place. So we participated in acute and ongoing crisis intervention. Some of my team members supported in the death notification for families. And then myself personally oversaw some of the ongoing work at the high school for parents, teachers, and students. And as you know, in that small community, most of them had close connections and relationships to someone or something that was connected to those moments in December.
Yeah, that was a really, really sad situation. One more question, guys. Texas, let's take Texas and the young man who committed these crimes. Can you kind of explain to me why, when a young Black man shoots somebody, he's a thug? But when a white guy or someone else from a different race shoots a mass shooting, there's a mental health issue? Why do you think that we are portrayed that way as thugs, as opposed to someone who has serious mental health issues, which is something I've written about many times? Do you think we're ever going to get to the point where if a Black guy shoots another Black guy, he is deemed as somebody with mental health issues and not some street thug trying to gain credibility?
So I'll respond quickly, then I'll turn it over to Marcus. So it's, for me, it's not a yes or no answer. It's a I hope so. But it's not something that I could see in the moment. And I think the why for me is, I'll give you this quick synopsis. So if you go back to Richard Nixon, and I'm sure you're familiar with this, Richard Nixon and the law and order sort of mantra that that motto of being the law and order president, right? So we all know, it's been documented that Richard Nixon used his fundraising money to show people of color, particularly of Black men, be locked up on TV in orange jumpsuits and handcuffs, right? That's a fact. I'm not exaggerating.
No, that's a fact.
That's a fact.
That's a fact.
So when people in power use media to portray people who look like you and I in that way, when I'm a judge, when I'm a police officer, when I'm the mental health evaluator, when I'm the social worker, if I don't have close connections and understand the culture of people of color, then I'm going to go based off what I'm being inundated with.
Right.
And there's a constant bombardment of negative associations, and there's a lack of positive imagery of Black males on TV. So if I'm the decision maker, I can't see you as a victim in any way, shape, and form. I have to see you as the perpetrator, right? The perpetrator, the criminal, the thug, because that's how we're oftentimes portrayed.
That's how we're portrayed
in media. So I think the answer to that, and then I'll pass it over to Marcus, is we have to continue to try to educate. And that's why Dear Black Male, that media portrayal of Black male portion, is so important because we spend 2.5 to 3 hours explaining to people from the birth of a nation and how that depicted us on the screen, right? And we all know Woodrow Wilson, that was the first film ever shown at the White House, right? They showed that film at the White House.
Yeah, Mr. Griffith.
Right, and if you look from
Griffith,
right, W.D. Griffith, right. So if you go from that to the same imagery that we see today, and I'll say this lastly, there was a recent study that was done, and they did a study of the Black Ink Crew, which I've never seen this show, but it's a show, it's an hour-long show. That show with commercials probably runs 33 minutes, right? They did a research study to see how many violent or aggressive acts occurred during that show, and they said it's an average of 97. So in 32 minutes, there's 97 violent verbal or physical aggressive acts by people of color. So if you're seeing that in 30 minutes, then couple that by a 24-hour cycle of news and social media, and then what would you think of a person of color? So that would be my response to that. I don't know if Marcus, if there's anything you would add.
Nah, Anthony, not much at all. I think you eloquently kind of gave us a great overview of how that weaves together. The only thing I would ask for consideration is think about how that also impacts young males.
Yes.
Who are seeing that as their minds are still developing and they're trying to find themselves an identity in the sense of belonging.
Yeah, and as a member of the media, I can tell you, you're absolutely correct in the way the media portrays young Black males, or any Black male for that matter. And it is really difficult for people of color in the media to reverse that, because there's not enough of us, quite frankly, there's not enough of us. And it really is a problem when every publication, every TV station, every opinion writer, for the most part, are all white, trying to explain the Black experience, which they cannot explain at all, which is why organizations such as Welcome to Reality is so important, are so important to the Black community. So guys, let me ask you, is there anything that you wish to tell people that I have not asked you about? Is there any message you want to get out there?
So I'll go really quick. So just to speak to your point, and this is not a carry on or carry over, we are currently in the process of trying to develop a junior journalism program. And we're trying to recruit minority youth to understand and get in the field of journalism for the very reason you said. Yeah. So we're doing this through our nonprofit branch, which is reality-based services. And we have a youth program that we're developing now. We're going to be looking for people to support us, because you're right. I think the statistics say that 90% of editors in all news are particularly white people, right? And that's what Pew Research says. Yeah. So our thing is, we could complain about it, or we could try to do something to change it. And that's one of our efforts to change it, is to try to help young people understand journalism and become the creators of their narrative, and not let somebody else be the author of their narrative.
You've been listening to Real Talk, Real People. If you would like to be on the show, if you have an idea for the show, give us a call at 203-605-1859, or drop us an email at realtalkrealpeoplect@gmail.com. You folks have a good week, and we'll talk again next week.